Hello there, my name's Alex Sargent and welcome to Uni Q, the first regular political programme for the UK's youth. If you've got an opinion you want heard, then now's the time to make it. We're going to be covering the topics that matter to you, affect you, and most importantly, are chosen by you. Tonight we're at the University of Manchester. Quite a bit to say about this well-established institution. It's got over 40,000 students, making it the largest single-campus university in the UK. It's also had 23 Nobel Prize winners study or teach here, and most importantly, it's reached the University Challenge final in three of the last four episodes, or even series. Hands together, please, for Manchester! Right, OK, on with the show. We've got quite an exciting panel for you lined up this evening. Our first guest ran for the Labour Party Deputy Leadership Contest in 2007. She came 6th, which was last, unfortunately. She's also going to be running as well for the next election, I understand. Please put your hands together for Hazel Blears. Our second guest was elected as a councillor representing a local area of Manchester. He's also going to be fighting Harriet Harman's deputy, Barbara Keeley, in the next election. It's Iain Lindley. Next guest this evening is all the way from London. He is director of the think tank, the Centre for Social Cohesion. He is Douglas Murray. Douglas, pleasure to meet you. Good to see you. OK, we're going to start off with our first question.
Is our political system beyond repair?
Is our political system beyond repair? Let's go to our first panellist this evening. Hazel, you're the only lady on the panel, so let's go with you first.
I don't think it's beyond repair, but I think it's a bit like a patient in the intensive care unit at the moment. And I think that we're going to have to do something really quite radical, quite quickly, in order to restore people's faith in politics. I think there are some big issues around, not least the crisis that we've had this year, obviously with the expenses issue, which has undermined people's trust in politicians right across the board. I think the recession and the pressures on people and their families has meant that there's a huge amount of insecurity around in our communities. And again, that's undermined trust in the political process as to whether or not politicians can actually do anything about some of these big global forces that are out there. So I think at every level, I think people in communities are feeling very insecure. They feel very distanced and disaffected with the political process, and I think that we are going to have to do some pretty radical surgery, to take the medical analogy a bit further, in order to get the patient back on its feet again and hopefully in a bit more of a healthy state.
So you're running for the next election, is that correct?
I will be, well, I am the Labour Party candidate for Salford, and the same that I've been for the last 12 years. I was obviously a councillor there for 8 years as well, and it's my hometown where I was born, brought up, where all my family live. It's close to my heart. I'm passionate about it, and I want to carry on making a difference.
OK. Douglas?
Is it damage beyond repair? Well, no, because it can't be, because, I mean, what is the alternative? I don't think there are any alternatives to the broadly based to the system we currently have in Westminster. That said, I mean, the reforms that are needed in the House have to be much more than the sort of band-aid reforms they've been so far. The breakdown of trust between people in this country and Westminster is profound. I mean, I'm one of those people who lives and works in Westminster who doesn't have any reliance on voters and voter approval. But I look at the breakdown that's happening between the public and those people in the House of Commons just across from my office. And I have to say, I think it's worse than any breakdown of trust like this for, I think, living memory, really. And it just can't be overemphasized. And the House of Commons is proving itself incapable of reforming itself. The party leaders, I have, by the way, I should say, no particularly party political truck in this. I dislike all the parties. But all of the leaders of all of the parties have done the same thing, which they've punished a few people they didn't need anyway, and kept the people closest to them, irrespective of how much those MPs picked our pockets. And the pickpocketing, as it turned out again just a couple of days ago, has been incredible. We see just in the last 48 hours a Tory MP, one of the most bigoted backbench Tory MPs you can think of, the creator of Section 28, among other things. He's been turning out to have squirreled £105,000 of our money to a company co-owned by him and his girlfriend, which is a nice example of morals. And we see this with MP after MP, even, and this was sort of the final insult to you and to me, the final insult was the election of John Bercow as the Speaker. John Bercow himself was one of the most egregious pickpockets, and then comes in and says he's going to reform the system. This is like giving the tax evasion authority over to Al Capone.
I was going to ask Iain for your thoughts on this topic.
I think what we have is a fundamental breakdown between a lot of the politicians, not all, but an awful lot, and from all the major parties, and the people they were elected to represent. And I think that there's one very simple thing that we can do as politicians, and it's something that all MPs in Westminster should have been doing anyway, and they haven't been doing, and that's reconnecting with the people who elected them and the people who are there. And if every time they signed an expense form, every time they made a decision in Westminster, every time they thought about taking a lobbyist out for lunch, if they were just to sit back and think, well, what would my neighbour think of this? Or what would my family think of this? Or what would the local newspaper think of this? And perhaps then they might not actually do a lot of those things, and that might actually solve the problem in a way, not completely, but it's about going back to the first principles of the people that we do actually elect and the people that aspire to represent us. You know, I'm very conscious as a local parliamentary candidate that it is my friends and my family and my work colleagues and my acquaintances from school who are actually going to be going out next May probably and voting in the general election, deciding whether I get to Parliament or not. And I feel I have a responsibility to them, and I think the problem is that a lot of our members of Parliament who are there at the moment have forgotten about that responsibility. They've forgotten about the people who actually go out and elect them.
Okay, just because we're running short on this particular question. Hazel, just as you're the only elected representative here in Parliament right now, is there anything you'd like to add in terms of what you've done so far, what you perhaps claimed? Do you feel that you've already made statements, I understand, but just so you can enlighten our audience again in terms of your expense claims, do you feel you've paid back what you felt needs to be paid back? Is there anything else you feel you should, or is that basically it?
Goodness me, this is like being with my confessor in
Thank
church,
you.
I think. What I would say is that when this all blew with the Telegraph, obviously the people who were highest profile and had the farthest to fall were clearly in the spotlight. And I think I was the first person out there in the absolute maelstrom of what was going on. And I can say for the record, I have never flipped my property in order to maximise my expenses. The flat I sold was for 3 years out of 3.5 years, paid for by me, therefore not subject to capital gains tax, etc., etc. I can say all of that, but actually where the public are is that they think the rules were wrong, whether you were inside the rules or not, the rules were wrong, the system needs to be changed. I do agree with Douglas that there needs to be some more independent element in here, because I think the idea of MPs regulating their own affairs, I think that has gone and it's been shown not to work, and the public will not trust the system unless there is independence in there. And I think that it has to be completely different. But I do also actually agree with the point that Iain was making, that it isn't just about expenses, it's also about that sense that people for quite a while now, before all this happened, were feeling that, if you like, political parties and the political process was like hermetically sealed, and they couldn't get in and they couldn't have their say. And I think there's a lot of work to be done about how you're more accountable in general terms, not simply about expenses.